Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chiseled. And why do we call it Chiseled? Because we're all work in progress. I'm your host, Rob Commodari. I'm also the author of the book Better Than You Think. Today, I have a special guest on the show, Bob Burg. Bob Burg has written several books. For over 30 years, he's been successfully showing entrepreneurs, leaders, sales professionals how to communicate their values and accelerate their business growth. Over the years, he was best known for his sales classic, Endless Referrals. It's his business parable. The Go-Giver, the co-author with John David Mann, that's created a worldwide movement. And ladies and gentlemen, I just read this book for the fourth time, and I don't ever get tired of reading it. So anyway, while part of the 4-book series, The Go-Giver itself has sold more than 1 million copies and been translated into 30 languages. It was rated number 10 on Inc. magazine's list of most motivational books ever written and was on HubSpot's 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. Bobby's a founder of the Go-Giver Community Network, the first of its kind online business community created by and for Go-Givers. He's an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He is an unapologetic, and I love this, an unapologetic animal fanatic, and served on the board of directors of Furry Friends Adoption Clinic in his own town of Jupiter, Florida. Bob, thank you for being here today, and welcome to the show.
My pleasure, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So I'd like to start out, if you give us a little bit of backstory of how you got to being a writer and the story, a little insight of the Go-Giver. We won't want to give it away because we want people to read it. But if you could start there, that'd be awesome.
Well, I began in broadcasting, first as a sportscaster on radio and then television news. I was the late night news guy for a very, very small ABC affiliate in the Midwestern United States. I wasn't particularly good at it. I could read the news, but I certainly wasn't a journalist. And it wasn't long before I realized that wasn't going to be my career path. So I like to say I graduated into sales. And the problem was I knew nothing about sales. I had no formal training, and the company I was with apparently didn't either, because I was sort of just left out on my own to do the best I could. I could make a lot of calls and see a lot of people, but I certainly wasn't having a lot of sales. I was what the late Jim Rohn would have called one of those people who had the motivation, but not the information. And, you got to have both. If you have the information, you've also got to have the motivation. So it's not one or the other, it's both. But I didn't have the information. One day I was in a bookstore looking for something that would help me. I didn't know what. Now, this is 40 years ago. So, sales books and all that wasn't known to everyone. If you didn't know, you didn't know. So I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I saw 2 books on selling. Wow. There's actually books on how to sell. One was by Zig Ziglar. One was by Tom Hopkins, 2 of the icons in the sales space, of course. And I got those books, and I like to say I did not read them. I devoured them. And I would come home every night after work, and I would just into the wee hours of the morning, I would learn and study and practice and drill and rehearse and the whole thing. And within a few weeks, my sales began to go through the roof. Now, this was very encouraging to me, because what it said is if you have a methodology, you can pretty much accomplish anything within reason. Really, it's a system. And to me, and this is just my definition, I define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles, the key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then all you need to do is A and continue to do A and continue to do A, and eventually you're going to get the desired results of B. So that's what I did, and I enjoyed it. But the best part was coming to learn about all the personal development materials out there. It wasn't just the how-to aspect of sales, as important as that is. It was developing yourself on the inside. I didn't know about this stuff, and I was a lousy student in school. I barely graduated high school, barely got into college, and barely graduated college. And so this is where my education started. And so I read the books, the How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Magic of Thinking Big, The Science of Getting Rich, actually that one I didn't know about till later on, but the Think and Grow Rich is what I was thinking of. As a Man Thinketh, and Psycho-Cybernetics, and The Greatest Salesman in the World, and just all the classics in the field. that I'm sure you've read as well. And
Yes,
and
sir.
this is what, said to me, success is an inside job. We develop ourselves, we grow internally, right? We chisel ourselves little by little, and then that success manifests outwardly. So that was, to me, just a great find, and continued to do sales. Eventually, worked my way up to sales manager of a company, and started sharing with others how to do what was working for myself and my team. And what did they used to say on the old Seinfeld show? Yada yada yada. 30 years later, here we are.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, got into speaking as a profession, and of course, you write books as a way of positioning yourself into speaking. And I would say this: I wrote my first book, Endless Referrals, as a way of positioning myself as a speaker. Every book I wrote or co-wrote after that was because I felt I had something to say that I wanted to communicate, and felt a book was the best way to do it. And that was the case with The Go-Giver, co-authored by John David Mann, who's an absolutely brilliant writer and storyteller, who I just give so much credit to for being amazing.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So it sounds like it was a great journey. Where was the part in your life where you're in sales and you're like, I need to do something about this, because you wrote this book, Endless Referrals? What was the precursor there?
Well, so, learning sales, was fun. It was a joy, because again, it was something I didn't even know that was a thing to be learned. I also, though, along with the how to, needed to be able to better learn how to develop relationships with people, because, and this was the key, the underlying premise of Endless Referrals, and I've been saying this for 35 whatever years, and it was also in The Go-Giver and so forth, and that is, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. So, you can have the best selling skills in the world, but if you don't know how to create relationships with people, it's pretty much all for naught.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. So you write this book, Endless Referrals, and it's about, you want to use that as to get to a speaking platform and get
Oh, well,
that
that was,
Yeah.
that position, that helped me, because for the first few years, I was doing, and I had the cassette tape albums, right? That's right. That we're going back in time again. Right? I had these tapes myself from stage and everything. But I remember attending my first National Speakers Association meeting, and a couple of the more veteran speakers there said, Burg, it's about time now to write a book. And I said, I really don't want to write a book. I kind of just like what I'm doing. And I said, well, thing is, if you write a book, you're going to make yourself much more marketable. You're going to be able to position yourself as an expert. You're going to be able to get higher fees. You're going to be able to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And they were right. It was a great idea to do that.
How scary was that when you first put that book out?
I can't say it was scary. I had already had probably half of it written because of the album I had out. I say album, that's so dated. We albums, right? Remember the old clamshells and the whole thing. But so I had a lot of that written. It would have been more intimidating had I had to work hard at getting an agent, which you usually do. But here's the thing: Randy Pennington, who was, again, one of the first people I met at National Speakers Association, already very successful, he actually introduced me to his agent, who loved the book and sold it, to New York, to the publishing house. So I lucked out, and as far as that. So that took away a lot of the fear that, that I knew I didn't have to go through that entire process. Actually, now with The Go-Giver, and this is after I was an established author, with The Go-Giver, John and I, once we had another agent for that, and when she took it to New York, we actually got turned down 24 times by
Really?
before the 25th one accepted it. So it just goes to show that the selling aspect never stops. Right.
You hear that so often, that people, they authors, especially with their books, they put it out there 1, 2, 10, 15, 20 times, and you finally got that accepted. Yeah. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. But I cut you off. You were ready to say something else. I'm sorry.
No. That was it.
Yeah. So what was the change in dynamic? Okay, now you're writing a sales book, you're getting out there speaking, and now you, like you said, you felt, you didn't say calling per se, but that's the way I interpret it. You felt this voice say, hey, you need to do something else. Where was the transition there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Endless Referrals was a how-to book.
Mhm.
And it was really written for entrepreneurs and salespeople who again, they knew they had a great product or service. They knew it brought wonderful value to people, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable going out into their local communities and building the kinds of relationships that would cause people to want to do business with them directly and or refer them to others. So it was a guidebook. It was a how-to book. But I'd always noticed whenever I'd read parables, whether it was the longer form, uh, Mandino's Greatest Salesman in the World, or the shorter 1 minute manager and 1 minute salesperson, 1 minute, by Blanchard, Doctors Blanchard, Dr. Johnson, or many of the others. And nowadays you have great people like John Gordon and, Andrea Waltz, Richard Fenton, great parables. But back then I'd even notice that parables, because they're stories, and we know that stories connect on a deeper level than a how-to book. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take that basic premise of the know, like, and trust, relationship building, and really put that into a parable, with the premise being that, because I'd always noticed that the people who are the most successful in sales, the most sustainably successful, were always the ones who were more focused on giving value to others. Now, they received in great measure, absolutely, but their focus was on the giving. That's why we say with the Go-Giver, the basic premise is that shifting your focus from getting to giving. When we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. It's not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. Not for any way out there, woo-woo, magical, mystical reasons. It makes logical sense when you're that person who can move your focus off yourself and place it on serving others, discovering what they need, want, and desire, helping them solve their problems, helping move them closer to happiness. People feel good about you. People feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you, right? So that was about. Now, I met John, I think, in maybe 2001, 2002, when I started writing. Maybe it was a little later than that. When I started writing a monthly column for a magazine, he was the editor-in-chief of that magazine, and he was such a great writer. And everybody knew his reputation was outstanding. And he was mainly a ghostwriter on a couple of very big books. But if you knew John, you knew this guy was great. And he was also such a nice guy and so humble in what he was doing. So when I had this idea for the parable, he was the only one I wanted to write this with. And I asked him, what he thought of the idea. And he and his then fiance, now wife, Anna, they were visiting her mom in the Tampa area. I live in Jupiter, across the state. They took a 4-hour ride one day. And then we had about a 3-hour dinner, just the three of us discussing what the book would be about, what it would look like, what the expectations were, and so forth. And about 3 weeks after that, he called and said, yeah, let's do this. I think this is a good idea.
So that's awesome. So the book itself, if we could dig into a little bit of that, because we don't want to, no spoiler alerts today. We're not going to give away too much of it, but there's 5 stratospheric laws of success, the 5 laws of stratospheric success. And if we could touch them real quick, but before that, I want to ask this question. Sure. So you guys come together, you're going to do and I don't know if this is the correct word, a parabolistic story, right? Sure. And did you guys like synergize? Like, what's this part? How does this look? Who came up with the 5 laws? How did that all come to play?
Yeah, so we strategized the basic idea and premise of the book. We came up with the 5 laws. John always likes to say they wrote themselves, and I agree. We came up with the first couple, I think, and then they kind of went along as we discussed them, and some of them surprised us as we were doing them. But he would write a scene, and then we discuss it and go back and forth. We did all this on the phone and through not emails, but through my lack of technology. So we send the thing and we do the corrections on and go back and forth.
Like Word, it wasn't Zoom for sure, though, right?
No, it wasn't. But we go through everything and we write and read. But again, he was the writer, he was the guy, and so that's how we did it, kind of piece by piece, scene by scene.
That's incredible, because it's a really cool book. And can we touch on those 5 laws briefly?
Oh yeah, sure.
You want to go ahead? Go. You
Yeah,
go.
well, the 5 laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. The law of value is all about making the experience for that other person so outstanding that they feel as though they receive much more value than what they paid for, excuse me, while you still make a very healthy profit. This is simply understanding the difference between price and value, right? Price is a dollar figure. It's finite. Value is the relative worth or desirability of a thing to the end user or beholder. What is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, and experience, right, that brings so much worth or value to another human being that they will willingly exchange their money for it while you make a very healthy profit? And what's interesting about this is that, and one of my heroes, Harry Brown, used to say, in any free market-based exchange, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one's forced to do business with anyone else. So in this kind of exchange, there should always be 2 profits: the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand. This is why a free market system, where government's major function is to just protect the individual from force or fraud, of course. But other than that, leave people free to exchange willingly with one another. That's how you build an economy and benefit everyone involved, right? Whereas central planning shrinks the pie, right? Free markets build a bigger pie. So that's law number 1. And it comes down to focus. This is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. Right? It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, which means nothing more than the value must be the focus. That comes first. The value comes first. The money you receive is simply a natural result of the value you've provided. So law number 2, the law of compensation, says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number 1 is all about the value itself, law number 2 is all about how many people's lives you touch, how many lives you impact with that value. Law number 3, the law of influence, says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. No, not in a doormatty way or a martyrish way or a self-sacrificial, not at all. It's understanding, as we were discussing earlier, the golden rule of business, of sales, that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Well, here's the thing. There's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you, those know, like, and trust feelings toward you and others, than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to an other focus, looking to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, the protege, make your win all about the other person's win.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Law number 4, the law of authenticity, says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. The mentor in this part of the story, Deborah, shared that, again, all the skills in the world, the sales, technical, people skills, very important, but they're all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, right, when you show up as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you, they feel comfortable with you, they feel safe with you. Now, authenticity should not be confused with not growing. Well, this is just the way I am. No. This is where, we chisel ourselves. This is where we work on ourselves. This is where we improve ourselves. This is where we become a better, higher, more authentic version of ourselves. And then law number 5, the law of receptivity, says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. This is simply understanding that, you breathe out, you also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other. It's both. We breathe out carbon dioxide. We breathe in oxygen. We breathe out, which is giving. We breathe in, which is receiving. Despite the messages of lack, the anti-prosperity messages we get from the world around us on a consistent basis, fact is, giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're simply 2 sides of the same coin, and they work in tandem. It's not, are you a giver or a receiver? No, you're a giver and a receiver. But here's what you know. the giving comes first. This
Yeah.
is universal law. These are laws of nature, human nature, economic nature, physical nature. We uh, plant before we harvest, not the other way around. We sow before we reap, not the other way around, right? We
Yeah.
give before we receive. And when we know that and we apply these principles and concepts, what's happening is we're creating that benevolent context for success. Then when it comes our way, we've got to be able to greatly, with gratitude,
Yeah.
receive it.
So let me ask you this, Bob. What do you say to the person? Because so many people out there say, I'm a giver, I'm a giver, I'm a giver, but they're not open to that receptivity. How do you coach somebody or encourage somebody to say, it's okay to receive?
Yeah. And it's probably one of the biggest emails that John and I received when the book first came out, that it was the first time someone had been like given permission, right, to receive. Is that now? There's other books on that, of course, that do a wonderful job of that. It just happened to be that was the first book they read with that, but it's very important. And here's really the thing: we have been inundated with anti-prosperity messages from the world around us for so long. With many people, it's a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, social media, cultural mores, all the messages we get. So this can really wreak havoc with a person's psyche. And it's the insidious thing is it's not the conscious part of it, it's the unconscious part, because consciously most people will say, sure, I'd love to, right? But if they've been brought up to believe in honesty and integrity and righteousness and goodness and this and that, but they've also, through everything that they've had thrown at them, heard the message that you can't be an honest person and wealthy, right? You can't be good, right? You can't, all those horrible, ridiculous messages. Well, that's in their unconscious, and we both know the unconscious against the conscious. Well, the unconscious is always going to work. So the first thing, if somebody has that, and they realize that they're not open to receiving, the first thing I'd say is congratulations for realizing.
Yeah.
Because it's only when we are consciously aware of an issue that we're in a position to be able to overcome it and to be able to work on it. Okay, so that's the first step. Now the question is so why is that? Now is where we have to help that person see what was it in their past that caused them to feel that there was something wrong with receiving, right? Now, I'd also suggest this. Make a study of prosperity. There are people out there like Randy Gage, David Nagel, the late Bob Proctor, people like Sharon Lecter and Ellen Rogan and Ken Honda. I mean, just and many more. They blog on prosperity. They write books on it. They do videos on it. They do workshops on it. So important. And you'll notice when you follow their materials that very rarely are they talking about the how-to. It's always about getting past those blocks, right?
Yeah.
And so I would say to that person, once you realize this is an issue, first start working on it, start checking your premises. When Randy Gage has this great teaching when he says, if you walk by a mansion and your initial thought is, oh, I wonder who they had to step over to get that. Well, you have an issue.
Yeah.
You have an issue with prosperity. If you're feeling when you walk by it is, oh, wow, I wonder what they did. I wonder how many people they had to serve in order to well, now you're in the right place, right?
So it's a mindset.
It's
Right?
mindset, right? And so I say make a study of prosperity and question your premises. When you see something on the internet that says millionaires should be outlawed or something, well, ask yourself why.
Yeah.
How does that make sense? How does that actually serve people, right? And so start really questioning it, but make a study of prosperity. There are enough great people out there on that topic to learn from.
I love that advice. And before I let you go here today, Bob, there's a couple other questions I want to ask you. And what would you encourage people to do? Because at some point in time, you felt there was a calling to go from sales, which you are still selling, right? You have to sell yourself and the books, but from going from the sales to getting on stage, to a calling, right? So you had that transition. How do people recognize that calling?
Oh, I mean, I think as you get older, it starts to take effect, right? The older we get, the more we realize there's more to life than just that initial, thrill of, making this and having this and doing this. I mean, there's got to be more to it. And so I think human nature tells us that we want to feel there's a purpose, that we're adding value to the world, that there's something greater than ourselves to focus on. So yeah, I think that's kind of natural, and I think we recognize it just as we start feeling joy.
But that's like being open to the law of receptivity. You have to be open to that calling, right?
Perfect. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite law?
I'd say it's the law of influence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any reason why?
Because I think influence is such a big part of the growth of humanity. Nothing happens unless people are able to influence others, move people to a desired action. Without it, we're stuck. So, it's those people who are able to master people skills and the art of communicating ideas in such a way that they help people to see the vision of those ideas and why it's possible. To be able to encourage someone,
Yeah.
so all that I think is.
In your writing and speaking, have you come across the resistance of the imposter syndrome?
Oh, sure, and I've got it too. So, yeah. Yeah, I've come across it.
Yes. And how do you deal with that?
I think you just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you do your best is what it comes down to.
And for everybody that's listening, imposter syndrome is basically, you don't believe you're good enough,
right,
worthy enough, or anybody's
exactly.
going to listen.
Who am I to be, right, and so forth. So yeah, absolutely. I think in fact, I almost worry about someone who doesn't have a little bit of imposter syndrome.
It's a good point. Yeah. Because if you don't have it, does that lead to a little bit of arrogance? Maybe, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. There's I think it's not the Dunbar effect. It's I can't remember the name of it, but it's that the people who know the least think they know the most. And is it Dunning-Kruger? It might be the Dunning-Kruger effect. And those who do know the most are the ones who question themselves the most.
There you go.
It makes sense logically when you think about it.
So Bob, before I let you go, I ask everybody this question. How much more chiseling do you have going on in your life? How many more books you got coming out?
I don't know how many more books I have coming out, but I'm going to continue to keep working and doing what I'm doing and trying to do the best I can to continue to add value to people's lives as the marketplace embraces it. And if the time comes that they don't, or I just don't feel excited about it, I probably when I'm 65 and I still love what I do, and I get up 4:30 every morning and can't wait to get to work. So as long as I feel that, I'll keep going.
That's awesome, Bob. Thank you so much for being here today with us. It's an honor and a privilege to me to have you on the screen. Mine. And you're awesome. You got to go get his books. I'm going to go get the Go Giver Influencer. That's my next book.
Thank you. That's my favorite of the series.
Is it really? Okay, good. I'll pick that out. And just so everybody, Bob he mentioned so many books today, and I've read every one of the books you mentioned, and it inspires me, and you become the books you read. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's just a great journey. You talked about personal growth and development. Had that helped you move along your journey? Bob, if anybody wanted to get a hold of you or follow you, how do they find you?
Easiest way is just to go to Burg, BURG.com. I like to keep things simple. And while they're there, they can subscribe to my daily impact emails that I send out actually 5 days a week. So it's not totally daily. It's 5/7 daily.
Take a break on weekends, right? Bob, thank you so much for being here. And until next time, everybody, let's go get chiseled.